Hello, my name is David Ewen and welcome. We'll be talking a lot about curriculum development today. So let us begin. Our topics will include teaching methodology. That will be the first topic. The second one is tactile actions for student engagement. And in number 3, we'll give a basic lesson flow example. In number 4, we'll talk about incremental learning. Number 5, learning by analogy. Number 6, compare and contrast. Number 7, repetition to reinforce. Number 8, keeping students engaged. Number 9, online course design and development. Number 10, what does course development include? And number 11, review of previous presentations. Remember, you can always ask questions and offer comments. I'm on QQ at 33254-77084 at qq.com. Again, that is 33254-77084 at qq.com. Your questions and comments will be part of our presentation. The teaching methodology is related to tell, show, do. Telling is when you teach the student about a topic. Showing is when you demonstrate, and do is when you confirm learning of the student when they do something that you've demonstrated and have taught. That is what tell, show, do means. Some students like to learn it by just being told. Others need to be shown. For example, here, this is how it's done. And then others say, no, wait, let me do it so I understand how it's done. That is the best way to teach, is to combine all three, tell, show, and do, so that the student will be able to capture their best ability to learn. Everybody learns differently. So if you apply tell, show, do in the lesson slides, allow the opportunity for the student to be lectured. Provide slides where the student is shown how to do something, and then other slides where they can actually do something. Maybe they can trace a letter. Maybe they can draw a line from the question to the answer. Or maybe they can circle the answer when prompted by the teacher. Those are some examples. As part of that do, which is part of the tell, show, do, there are tactile actions for student engagement. Tactile means moving with your hands or by touch. Sometimes students learn by touching and doing. So some examples is to trace, maybe some lines or letters or circles. Or as shown in number 2, to draw a line to connect, maybe from the question or to the answer. Or maybe to draw a line from a picture to a word. And number 3, to circle to identify. Number 4 is to match a picture to a word or to a phrase. So that way the student learns what they see and compare to what they read and hear. Number 5 is to complete. That's to fill in the blank, put in the correct word, provide the answer. And number 6 and 7 is what is seen in what is called a Venn diagram, to compare. Look at two things and see what are the same. Or to contrast, look at two things and see what is different. But we can have the student use the mouse to take control of answering the question. A very basic, simple lesson flow can be, number 1, to warm up, get the student engaged Very often the teacher will say, hello, how are you? How was your day? Or what do you plan to do tomorrow? Then there's other lesson-specific warm-up questions that are good. The second one is to introduce the topic to prepare the lesson. This is to get the student engaged and to provide expectations up front. Number 3 is to teach the topic. We talked earlier about tell, show, do, the lecture, the demonstration, and then have the student engaged by doing. Number 4 is to confirm the learning. That's to test and evaluate. You don't want to go too far into a subject matter unless there's a confirmation of learning. So that way each milestone is evaluated, and then the teacher can go back 1 or 2 slides to cover a topic if it is found that the student needs more help. And number 5 is a review of a topic. After several milestones have elapsed, then there's a review just to make sure that the student really understands the topic before going to the next lesson or the next chapter of learning. And number 6 is to summarize at wrap-up. It's to confirm, I should say, that what was explained in the beginning of the lesson of what the expectations were, the outcomes that were going to come from the learning, that it really has happened. So that way the student has the consistent understanding that when they take a lesson, they are first told what's going to happen, and then at the end of the lesson, they realize that what they were told in the beginning really did happen. The next one is incremental learning. The final learning expectation is broken up into multiple lessons that incrementally leads towards the expected final outcome. That was my discussion about the milestones and the reviews. A milestone are those short little steps to confirm learning from the previous 1 or 2 slides. The review might be at the end of the lesson before going to another lesson, or halfway through the lesson before doing more complex activities. Number 2, each lesson is a preparatory step for the next lesson. And in that next lesson, you may do a review of the previous lesson just to show the connectivity of the 2 lessons. Number 3, following the final learning expectation, a review of all previous lessons is conducted prior to a confirmation of learning. For example, a unit of lessons may consist of 7 lessons or 10 lessons. The final lessons of that unit is a comprehensive review of the material. Some review lessons might be too basic because they're too abbreviated. It may be necessary to have 2 or more review lessons of the previous 10 lessons just to make sure nothing is missed. And number 4, this all ties developmental steps together. So the curriculum development is contingent, or I should say relies on, what those milestones are and what the review lessons are expected to be. Learning by analogy. When babies are born, that's the first thing that they do. They learn by analogy. That is by imitating. Then after they imitate, they repeat it, and then they add more to it. Analogy, if I look at number 1 here, analogy learning comes from drawing conclusions. And if I look at number 2, drawing conclusions involves taking what you have learned and merging it with new concepts to develop a new understanding. I'll give you an example. You might see that it's cloudy outside. And you know when it's cloudy outside, it will rain. So you draw a conclusion that it may be necessary for you to carry an umbrella with you if you leave your home. Let's go to number 3. This is similar to incremental learning, but uses what the student has learned outside of the classroom. So we can learn by analogy and provide incremental learning from the student, or I should say for the student, and they can learn by using what they learned in a previous lesson and what they already know and learned outside of the lesson. And number 4, incremental learning provides importance to prior learning and validates the importance of future learning. Let's talk a little bit about compare and contrast. I talked about it briefly before when I mentioned the Venn diagram. The Venn diagram are 2 overlapping circles, and the overlap of the circles represents what is the same, and the 2 parts of the circles that are not overlapping identify what is different. One of the ways that we can teach by analogies is to teach the similarity of new knowledge with old knowledge to show an analogy. And then just to go outside of normal thinking, or as the expression goes, to think outside of the box, you can teach differences between old knowledge and a new lesson objectives to differentiate new skills so that there is the ability to adapt and go beyond the current skill levels. So this is something we can think about when we create lessons. Think about compare and contrast. As with any type of teaching, the lesson slides need to have incorporated with them the ability to have repetition to reinforce. Number 1, teaching one element 3 ways, such as tell, show, do, helps retain new skills. It helps to instruct and apply knowledge and to quiz to confirm. We instruct them, they apply the knowledge, and we quiz to confirm. That's part of tell, show, do. We tell them by instructing them. We show them by applying the knowledge. And by having the student do for demonstration for their own purposes, that's a quiz to confirm their understanding. Let's go into number 2. We blend these multiple elements and apply them together. This tell, show, do, or the instructing, applying knowledge, or quizzing to confirm. And number 3, we talked about the different ways to quiz. We can quiz in different ways, such as fill in the blank, or a multiple choice, or a matching, or those tactile functions, such as circle to identify an element, or draw a line from the question to the answer, or solve a puzzle as part of an activity. It's important to keep students engaged. Let's take a look at these 4 items. Number 1, students remain engaged throughout a reward system. This can be as simple as a teacher's tone of voice or body language like TPR, such as a thumbs up. And there may be other screen elements as part of the lesson that gives a reward system. Of course, there are trophies, there are stars that we give students, but we can also indicate a storyline that has a happy ending when the student does something right. Item number 2, tactile functions that we talked about earlier, such as the engagement of students using their mouse to circle options or connect elements with lines. When they're doing something, then they're more engaged. And number 3, just to make sure that the teacher is able to provide these engagement abilities for the student, notes for the teacher is used to remind the teachers of those specific instructions, such as prompting students when necessary to ensure teaching consistency. And finally, number 4, the prompts for teachers can be reminders to ask students to circle, to draw, to fill in, and to solve puzzles. Let's talk a little bit more about online course design and development. It is done with purposeful planning instilled with logic. By looking at the whole lesson, you can see that it makes sense. The beginning, middle, and end blend together consistently and logically. That brings us to number 2, that the organizing and sequencing, and of course the pacing of the course content fits in line with the time scheduled for the lesson. Number 3, thinking in terms of the student learning experience and desired learning outcomes. We have to think like the student to understand how we should teach the student in an effective way. Number 4, we have to realize that there's more than one way to fulfill learning outcomes. That's why we talked about tell, show, do. Every student learns in their own way, and we need to provide the resources to do that. Those tactile actions, such as circling and drawing lines, for example. And number 5, we provide a basis in a particular teaching and learning model. So let's take a look at what does course development include. Well, number 1, it requires analysis, determining the needs of the learners. That's why we talk about those milestones and the reviews, so that we can create multiple lessons that make sense. One lesson should make sense, but an entire unit of multiple lessons should also make sense. Number 2, the design. The design relates to establishing intended outcomes, the sequencing and structuring of instruction, methods of assessment, and the technologies to be employed. That is the learning management system. And number 3, development. Working out the details, drafting, and building out the course components. For example, within Blackboard, ensuring that it is all in alignment with the results of the analysis and design. And number 4, implementation, actually teaching the course and putting methods into practice. And number 5, the evaluation, reviewing instruction to determine the effectiveness of the course and revising as needed. Hello, my name is David Ewen, and this is Curriculum Design and Development. Welcome to the third part of our series in Curriculum Design and Development. I am here to present the methodology of curriculum design based on the theories of a well-known educator. These theories resulted in building blocks designed to create curriculum in a simplified format that give teachers greater opportunity to educate effectively, which enables students to learn more effectively. It is fortunate that these building blocks are available to help build curriculum in such a fashion that is known to be effective in maximizing the student's learning potential due to a guided approach for teachers delivering the content for learning. The easiest way to create lesson slides is to have a structured format that satisfies lesson requirements
that maximizes the student's learning potential. There is a design developed by Dr. Madeline Hunter. The lesson design supports the understanding that teachers make a large number of decisions each day with their students to optimize their learning potential. These decisions are related to content, teaching behavior, and student learning behavior. These decisions are made easier when lesson slides are designed in such a way that the student is guided through a learning process, allowing the teacher to utilize educational methodologies and techniques that maximize the student's learning potential. Dr. Madeline Hunter put forth theories in education, offering a simplified approach with curriculum design. Dr. Madeline Cheek Hunter was an American educator who developed a model for teaching and learning that was widely adopted by schools during the last quarter of the 20th century. Curriculum designed to support lesson flow. Knowing the Madeline Hunter model of mastery learning will help curriculum developers provide content for students. Dr. Madeline Hunter's research showed effective teachers have a methodology when planning and presenting a lesson. Dr. Hunter found that no matter what the teacher's style, grade level, subject matter, or economic background of the students, a properly taught lesson contained 8 elements that enhanced and maximized learning. She labeled 8 elements and began 2 decades of teacher training. The elements, referred to as lesson design, target teaching, or critical teaching, have stood the test of time as they are still used today in many teacher colleges and as reference for judging teacher effectiveness in many schools. Within each element of lesson design, there are many sub-skills, methods, and techniques, each demanding training, practice, and review in order to attain mastery of the Hunter model. Simply knowing about or reading about a lesson design will not produce flawless performance, but will form a basis for decision making. There are a total of 8 sections that fit the Madeline Hunter model of mastery learning. Curriculum quality is maximized when all 8 sections are utilized in the development of the lesson. Number 1, the anticipatory set. Number 2, purpose. Number 3, input. Number 4, modeling. Number 5, guided practice. Number 6, checking for understanding. Number 7, independent practice. Number 8, closure. Let's talk about the anticipatory set. This is a short activity, dispatch, or prompt that focuses the student's attention and ties the previous lessons to today's lesson. The objective and purpose. an explanation of the importance of this lesson, and a statement concerning what the students will be able to do when they have completed it. Input. This is the vocabulary, skills, and concepts to be learned. Modeling. This is where the teacher demonstrates what is to be learned. Guided practice. The teacher leads the students through the steps necessary to perform the skill using multiple modalities. Checking for understanding. The teacher uses a variety of questioning strategies to determine if the students are understanding. Independent practice. The teacher releases students to practice on their own. Closure. This is a review or wrap-up of the lesson. So again, the Madeline Hunter model of mastery learning involves the following. There are a total of 8 sections that fit the Madeline Hunter model of mastery learning. Curriculum quality is maximized when all 8 sections are utilized in the development of the lesson. Number 1, the anticipatory set. Number 2, purpose. Number 3, input. Number 4, modeling. Number 5, guided practice. Number 6, checking for understanding. Number 7, independent practice. Number 8, closure. Let's look at the anticipatory set. The teacher focuses the students' thoughts onto what will be learned. For example, tie in yesterday's lesson with today's lesson and get them interested. The anticipatory set is defined as a shot activity or prompt that focuses the student's attention before the actual lesson begins. It can be used when the students enter the room or in a transition between topics. Anticipatory set might be information given to students upon arrival, review questions, written on the board, or 2 short problems presented on a slide, an agenda for the lesson written on the lesson board, etc. Students learn more effectively when they know what they are supposed to be learning and why. Teachers also teach more effectively when they have the same information. For example, tell what, how, why, and what the students are going to be learning. The purpose or objective of the lesson includes why the students need to learn the objective, what they will be able to do once they have met the criterion, how they will demonstrate learning, etc. Input. The new knowledge, process, or skill must be presented to the students in the most effective manner. This could be through discovery, discussion, reading, listening, observing, etc. Input includes the vocabulary, skills, and concepts the teacher will impart to the students, the information the students need to know in order to be successful. Number 4, modeling. It is important for the students to see what they are learning It helps them when the teacher demonstrates what is to be learned. The teacher shows a graphic or demonstrates in a concrete way exactly what the finished product looks like. Remember, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Checking for understanding. It is important to make sure the students understand what was presented. One way this can be done is by asking the students questions. The teacher uses a variety of questioning strategies to determine, got it yet? And to reflect on the pace of the lesson. Should I move forward or back up? Guided practice. The students practice the new learning under direct teacher supervision. The teacher leads the students through the steps necessary to perform the skill using a trimodal approach. Hear, see, so. What do you hear? What do you see? So what does that mean? Independent practice. When the teacher is sure the students understand the new material, they assign independent practice. The teacher releases students to practice on their own based on learning that has occurred during the previous steps. The observation results in a confirmation of learning. Closure. At the end of each lesson, the teacher reviews or wraps up the lesson by posing a question for the class. Tell me or show me what you have learned today. Closure is not necessarily an endpoint, but more of a final check for understanding, used at the end of the class period. Closure for ongoing laboratory activities may not be appropriate. This is a reminder of Madeline Hunter Model of Mastery Learning. There are a total of 8 sections that fit the Madeline Hunter Model of Mastery Learning. Curriculum quality is maximized when all 8 sections are utilized in the development of the lesson. Number 1, the anticipatory set. Number 2, purpose. Number 3, input. Number 4, modeling. Number 5, guided practice. Number 6, checking for understanding. Number 7, independent practice. Number 8, closure. The slide development for curriculum is as follows. The anticipatory set is the lesson objectives. The objective and purpose is the expected learning outcome. The input is the lesson content. The modeling are the slides that allow teachers to demonstrate. Checking for understanding. Those are the questions for the students. Guided practice. That's the practice for the student that is guided by the teacher. Independent practice. This is where the student is tested and works alone. And closure. This is where we confirm the anticipatory set and the objective and purpose. This is the bibliography for the research of this presentation. My name is David Ewen. Thank you.